Good morning everyone. We are here today for the case of Mr. John Smith, who is accused of running a red light and reckless driving, on the 15th of August 2023. It is also alleged that, by running the red light, Mr. Smith caused a near collision with a pedestrian, who was crossing the street at the time. The pedestrian had to jump back to avoid being hit, which resulted in minor injuries. Mr. Smith, how do you plead to these charges?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I plead not guilty.
Very well. Could you please explain, in your own words, what happened on the day in question?
Yes. Well, I was driving down Queen Street, right? And, the light turned, it was yellow, I think. At least, I thought it was. And, I slowed down, but then, someone behind me started honking. It kinda made me nervous.
So, you're saying you thought the light was yellow?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was yellow.
Your Honor, if I may. There is clear CCTV footage showing the light was red for at least 4 seconds before the defendant passed through the intersection. Furthermore, by running the red light, Mr. Smith caused a near collision with a pedestrian crossing the street, which could have resulted in serious injury. The pedestrian had to jump back to avoid being hit, and suffered minor injuries as a result.
Mr. Smith, do you have any explanation for that?
I didn't see them. I was more focused on the car behind me, and I didn't mean to put anyone at risk.
Your Honor, if I may intervene here? Mr. Smith is a delivery driver, and on that day, he was under significant time pressure. While this does not excuse his actions, it might explain why he was not fully aware of the traffic light. I would also like to point out that Mr. Smith has no prior traffic violations.
But Your Honor, time pressure doesn't excuse reckless driving, especially when there's a clear violation of the law. The footage shows that not only did Mr. Smith run a red light, but he was also driving well above the speed limit.
Let's focus on one thing at a time. Mr. Smith, were you aware of your speed at the time of the incident?
I'm not sure. Maybe I was going a bit too fast, but I didn't think it was that bad, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now, let's move on to the matter of speeding. Could we have the officer who issued the citation come forward? Officer, can you confirm the speed at which Mr. Smith was driving at the time?
Yes, Your Honor. According to the radar, the defendant was driving at 70 km per hour, in a 50 km zone.
Thank you. Could you please also clarify, was there any signage indicating a lower speed limit at that intersection?
Yes, it's clearly marked as a 50-kilometer zone. And, there were no obstructions or distractions that would prevent the defendant from seeing the sign.
Thank you, officer. Mr. Smith, do you have anything further to add before I make a decision?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Based on the evidence presented, it appears that Mr. Smith did indeed run a red light and was driving over the speed limit at the time of the incident. Furthermore, the court has been informed that Mr. Smith caused a pedestrian to suffer minor injuries when they had to throw themselves out of the way to avoid being hit. However, before I make my ruling, I would like to hear from the defense regarding any mitigating circumstances.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Smith was under significant pressure that day, due to his work as a delivery driver. His livelihood depends on timely deliveries, and while this does not excuse his actions, it is important to consider the context. Mr. Smith has been a law-abiding citizen with no previous offenses, and has expressed deep remorse for his mistake. He is particularly devastated by the fact that someone was hurt, and he has offered to compensate the pedestrian for their injuries. I would respectfully ask the court to consider a reduced penalty, given these circumstances, and Mr. Smith's willingness to take full responsibility.
Thank you. Does the prosecution wish to respond?
Yes, Your Honor. While we understand the pressures Mr. Smith was facing, the fact remains that his actions caused harm to an innocent pedestrian. Running a red light, and speeding in such a busy area like Queen Street, is reckless, and could have resulted in far more serious injuries. The pedestrian was fortunate to have suffered only minor injuries, but the potential for greater harm was significant. The Crown believes a penalty should reflect the seriousness of these actions, and we recommend a harsher penalty than for typical traffic violations.
Very well. Mr. Smith, before I announce my decision, do you have anything else you would like to say?
Your Honor, I just want to say I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to put anyone in danger, and I'm deeply sorry for causing the pedestrian to get hurt. I've tried to reach out and offer help. I'll be more careful from now on. Please, I can't afford to lose my license. But I know what I did was wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I understand that this situation has been difficult for you, and I appreciate your remorse. However, the safety of the public is a priority for this court, and running a red light and speeding, especially in a busy pedestrian area, are serious offenses. Moreover, your actions resulted in minor injuries to a pedestrian, which the court must take into account. I am sentencing you to a fine of $200 for the red light violation, and an additional $200 for exceeding the speed limit. Additionally, due to the injury caused, I am suspending your driver's license for 3 months. You are also required to pay $1,000 in compensation to the injured pedestrian. Please ensure that you do not repeat this behavior.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.